And I think we are live. Welcome everybody to another Ignite Thursday. I like to do these every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to get you guys to communicate with you guys different thoughts and ideas, perspectives to help you make change in your lives, to ignite the change that you want in your life, right? We all have that song inside that we should be sharing with the world, is instead to hold it with us until the day we die, right? I think we need to express that song that we have and go out and make the changes that we want in life. What's going on, Lillian? So today's theme, I actually wanted to talk about what does sacrifice mean? And a lot of times, especially like in the self-development space, right? You hear about having to take sacrifices, and a lot of people are very standoffish when they realize that they have to give something up to get something. And so I wanted to kind of bring this up about sacrifice and realize that something you see, especially like, I actually laugh at this quite a bit because a lot of times you can go to like specific gyms and stuff when you work out, and they have like donuts and everything up front, right? So that kind of defeats the purpose of working out and getting fit, right? And so this is what I'm talking about, like sacrifice, right? It's not just about physical health. It's about anything that you want to achieve in life. You have to have a sacrifice, and you have to be okay with that. But with that being said, you shouldn't realize that you can never have it again, right? That's not like, okay, well, I'm going to sacrifice this, and that means forever and the rest of my lifetime. It's just never going to happen. That is not true, right? Like, even if you take the example of physical fitness, because you sacrifice, the way you eat, and you start approaching it, your diet, your lifestyle is different. That does not mean that you can't have that donut, once a week, have that cheat meal or whatever it is. Ultimately, understand that you're not giving something up forever. You just have to essentially regulate what it is that you're taking in. Again, not just in diet, but in any aspect in your life. And it also comes to, building things out. Like, if you want to build a business, if you want to do something that is different, is going to require you to sacrifice more than most people typically would. Right? I think the statistics are like 99 or 90% of people don't achieve the things that they want in life because they're not willing to sacrifice things. Are you willing to sacrifice TV time for research time, or actually implementing something that you want in your life? Maybe it's mindfulness, maybe it's meditation, right? Just getting peace of mind in your life and sacrificing that 15, 20 minutes of TV time to actually allow yourself to do the mindfulness meditation to find peace, right? And this can go into a lot of different things, because again, when you're talking about social media and everything, right, you're getting flashed all kinds of different subliminal messages and all these things that kind of get us hooked, right? It's the dopamine hook. And so ultimately we look for that as opposed to looking inside. And especially like as of recently, I've been really thinking about this is trying to us pulling away. And even last Thursday when I talked about this, a lot of times we've been pulling away from who we are, right? We don't want to face who we are. And the more that we allow the TV and everything else, yes, it's great and entertaining and stuff. I'm not saying you have to completely cut that stuff out, but you should sacrifice some of that time to dedicate to something else that you want in life. And this is where I talk about going out in nature, right? I didn't even realize that they've been like phrasing going out in nature now is like nature bathing now is the new term, I guess, for this. But getting out in nature and becoming one with nature again, right? And this allows you to think clearly. This essentially cleanses your mind, right? That's ultimately what you're doing. And sacrificing that little bit of time to start doing that. And how much are you willing to sacrifice to be different than the life that you have now? Because if you feel like you are complaining, if you feel like you aren't getting to where you want in life, you're going to have to sacrifice something, right? You have to give something to get something. And a lot of times we want that donuts and work out and get the six pack at the same time. Like, that's not going to happen, right? You have to sacrifice something to get there. Same for getting ahead, whether that's in your career, as an entrepreneur, whatever the case is, you have to sacrifice your time, right? That it can even mean with your friends and family, right? Like everybody's going to want to go out, perhaps party, perhaps do all these other different things. You're willing to sacrifice that time and to dedicate it to something that is more meaningful to you in the long run, right? In the macro as opposed to the micro. Now, I know talking about being in the moment stuff is important, but ultimately, if there are specific things that you want to achieve in life, right? If you go back, essentially, sitting in your deathbed, right? Are you going to look back at your life and say, man, I wish I would have really worked a little bit harder to achieve this one thing that I wanted to get, right? I'm not saying you have to be an overachiever and stuff. I know I like to overachieve on a lot of different things, right? But I want to be my optimal self, right? I want to really see what I can do in a lifetime and look back on it and be appreciative of it, right? And not only that, but I want to have a track record for my kids to be able to see, right? And so that's important to me. And so to be able to do that, right, I have to sacrifice other things. So when my kids are not around, I work a lot. But again, it's enjoyable work for me as well. Sometimes it's not always enjoyable, right? But I know I have to make the sacrifice to be able to make it work, to put in effort. And ultimately that is where it's going to pay off. And if you get stuck, which I think the 90% of people get stuck on the instant gratification and realize that it's a slowly building process, like anything, right? Like any habits, anything that you want to change in life is a slow progression, right? I've talked about, slowly raising the temperature of the water. It's the same concept here that applies to your life. Is if you want to, achieve the things that you want, you're going to have to make the sacrifice and know what that is and be okay with that, realizing that you're something for something better over time, right? And again, your compounding efforts on the sacrifices that you make in the current moment will add up and eventually pay off in the end. You have to be okay and realize that, right? And it's something you have to look into habits and change your mindset, because it is a hurdle, right? You have that hurdle as to, well, if I give up this, and that means I can't have that. And a lot of times there's always something deeper there, right? Now, when you're thinking about taking away something, I relate a lot of stuff to food, because again, I've battled a lot of weight issues as a younger kid in some adult years, right? But ultimately understand that having to realize about that sacrifice of giving up food, right? And realizing, okay, well, I can only eat a cheat meal once a week, right? As opposed to doing it every day, right? Just eat whatever I want. And that makes me happy in the moment, but after the fact, I don't feel so great. And so realizing that it's not just about, getting in shape and looking a specific way, it's coming more to the fact that I like the way I feel, right? I feel like I'm in control of my mind. I feel like I'm in control of my body. I'm not hurting. I'm not relying on other things to make me feel better. And I think, that's when I talk about all these different tools and stuff, that's what it does. It puts you in a state where you're not relying on other things, right? You look internally, you deal with essentially who you are internally. And I know a lot of us don't want to look and see inside what exists there. And so we fill that void with other different things that perhaps, slowly make us feel better in the moment, as opposed to the long run, and doing the sacrificing and not having, that piece of pizza or whatever, which it can be hard, right? I'm not saying none of it's easy, but it's, again, building habits upon the sacrificing, right? It's the willpower, like how much you got to exercise that willpower muscle to be able to be okay with the sacrifice. And initially, when you first start out, it's not going to be easy. None of it's going to be easy. Anybody that's ever started realizes it is not easy, even from the beginning. It's something you have to practice, but when you do practice, you do get better. It's not saying it's when you get to a point to where that, it's just 110%. It's just a switch you flip on. It doesn't work that way. You have to continuously exercise that muscle. It's just like working out and gaining muscle, right? You have to continuously work that muscle, because if you don't work that willpower, right, to not go out and to tell your friend or family, no, I'm not going to do this right now. I actually got to sit down. I got to study, and I want to do better here, and I want to succeed here. So for me to be able to do that, I'm going to go ahead and pass for a while, right, and realize that it's going to take a couple sacrifices for you to be able to get what you want. And it's not saying that eventually, some event that later down the road you can go, right? You still need to, let your hair down and go out and enjoy yourself, but ultimately realize that you're going to have to make those sacrifices and be okay with that. Again, the biggest thing is going to be a mental hurdle. But as long as you realize that that's what it's going to be, and that it will take sacrifices, that'll be okay. And not realize that it's the forever kind of thing. And so that's, I'm trying to think what else I had on here. Mental hurdles, give something to talk. So even like for myself, right? Like sacrifices I've made, obviously I've talked about like the weight that I've battled through my life and the sacrifices I've made. But again, changing habits has allowed me to essentially make those sacrifices like a normal thing. And so I don't really see it as like a sacrifice anymore. When you initially start something, right, it's that sacrifice, right? Like I'm comfortable here, but to go and expand here, I gotta give up what I'm comfortable with. So again, you are rewiring your brain. You're rewiring that casual dopamine hit that you're used to, and to try something else that we tend to forget what you may be losing. You may be gaining a lot of other different things, right? And when it comes to things like health or business or a job or just leveraging up in life, right? You need to realize that the sacrifice really isn't that bad, right? It seems bad because again, you're losing whatever it is, and more than likely it's an emotion, right? Because we are emotional creatures, so it's whatever emotion are tied to that thing, right? Whether it's eating or watching TV, right? It's that emotion that makes you feel good, right? As opposed to you think you're going to lose that emotion moving into this new thing because now I got to work out and I hate working out, and that's not what I want to do, right? But understand that once you start doing it, right, you start replacing that old dopamine hit or the old emotion with a new dopamine hit and emotion at the same time, but in something different. And then you start, if it's working out, you start feeling a lot better, right? And again, it's not just about aesthetics and all that stuff like that. It's more about the feel. You get to a point to where it becomes more than just the aesthetic, the look, right? It gets more to the point to where you feel, you like the way you feel, and you realize that if you change anything up, you'll eventually get to the point where if you change anything up, then you feel bad about it, right? You feel your body, the way your body feels and everything. And so ultimately understand that it becomes the new norm. And so it's just taking that initial step. And when you're talking about taking initial steps to make sacrifices, yes, it's something you have to be okay with. It's something you have to choose to want to do. You have to have a big driver to make those sacrifices. And this is why I talk about perspective and experiences and stuff, because you have to have something that is going to kind of push you over the edge to want to make a change. A lot of times you'll tolerate it until you get to a point to where you will no longer tolerate it. And I've actually made a video on this and try to go more in depth on this because of the fact that we can get motivation, we get little bursts of motivation, but really the underlying driver here is your why. And understand that if you don't have that why, that you, or that emotional ignition is something I talked about, you're not going to ultimately overcome the sacrifice to achieve the thing, right? Because again, it's building out that habit. It's going to take 60 days to be able to do that. And once you get to that point, it starts to become the normal, and you tend to forget that you just start automatically doing it. And this is what helps, right? It helps overcome the sacrifice and realizing that it's not really a sacrifice anymore because it's just part of your daily life and daily routine. And again, it's building small habits upon each other, having that compound effect to get to where you're trying to go. So with that being said, my sacrifices that I've had have been getting over the hurdles to, have the munchies and stuff. And I've had to figure out different tools and stuff or different tips and tricks to help me times when I got hungry, right? To be able to get over that, to ultimately allow me to realize that I'm sacrificing all the junk food and all the stuff that makes me feel good in the moment, but to ultimately lose the weight, but then to get to a stage to where I was feeling really good. I can wake up and wasn't in pain, I was feeling fantastic, right? I was always energized and stuff. And so it's like anything, right? And even like when I sacrificing, like going back to college, right? Even as an adult was a hard thing because you feel like you're almost left behind as an adult, right? And so when I went back to college as an adult, it's sacrificing all the time I had after work and everything. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to go home and watch TV. But I had to force myself and realize that, in the macro of everything, that I'm doing this to improve my life. Right? I didn't like the career I had. I wasn't enjoying it. My tolerance level for it was no longer there. Right? I was done with it. I wanted to do more, but to be able to do more, I had to sacrifice that time, right? That family time. I had to sacrifice going out and going for a run, right? During that time, I didn't work out a lot at all because of that fact. Like I wanted to achieve, I was like worked full time and then went to college full time. So that was essentially all I did, and realized that I had to sacrifice, those 4 years to get to where I wanted to, because I wasn't enjoying that job. It was something I knew I couldn't do for the rest of my life, right? Like I couldn't do the physical labor for the rest of my life. And being in my early 30s, the physical labor was already putting a toll on my body. And I was realizing that, at 40 years old, this is not something I want to do. I want to be able to utilize my brain as opposed to utilize my body and try to take advantage of that. And so there are different sacrifices you have to look at and see what you're willing to do, right? What will you tolerate? Because if you're just going to keep tolerating it, then, you're not going to be able to make the changes that you want in your life. And again, I can come on here and tell you all day, I can motivate you, I can and show you how to do it, provide the tools for you. But unless you want to change, it's not going to happen. You can't wish change into existence, right? It's just not going to happen. I mean, you can meditate and stuff like that, which I believe, it helps, right? It helps guide your mindset to focus on those things that need to be done, as opposed to just blindly like, oh, this is something I want, and then not really take the action or the effort or to make that thing possible. But when you're doing things like mindfulness and stuff, you're focusing on those things that you really want in your life, and ultimately realize that if there's something you really want in life, you should also focus on one particular thing, or two, possibly three, but you don't want to have too many things on your plate, or else it's never going to get accomplished. That's what's also important. And realize that if you focus on the one thing, especially if it's something you really want, it's best to just focus on that one thing. And like, even for me, like when I talk about health, when I talk about, upgrading my skills to get into computer science, and then doing entrepreneurship and all these other different things, doing the stock market and all that kind of stuff, right? Like I had to cut stuff out, and I realized that I was expanding myself too far out, right? And to do these things and to cut down onto those 2 or 3 things that are really important and just focus on those. I mean, if it could just be one thing, that would be the ultimate thing, is just focus on that till it's done. And even when I was getting myself back in shape, I just did that. I just studied that. I just made sure that my daily actions went towards that. And then once that became the norm, then I started branching off to other things. Then I started I was looking at investment stuff and doing active investing and stuff at the same time, but not as heavy, right? So I did have a secondary thing, but again, my primary focus was on my health And then once that became the norm, then I started shifting focus over to the next thing, started building habits and everything for that, and made sure that that was stable. Now, even that, right, when I talk about the stock market stuff and stuff that I do, I went heavier on that, right? Because it was something that I had to spend a lot more time because it was all fresh and brand new to me. But that took longer, right? With the health stuff, it took a couple months to regulate that because it's something I was used to. But I ended up shifting over and then again, spending more time on it. So just realize that, sacrifices are something that is necessary to break out from everybody else. You have to be willing to sacrifice your time, and you can't say you don't have time because you always have time somewhere. You just have to look for the areas, audit your life, and see where that time is going. And you know where that time is going. So when you say that I don't have time, it's more likely I don't want to sacrifice what it is to give up something to achieve something greater. And so we have to go back to the point that, well, you're not going to get anything different out of life if you don't sacrifice something. Right now, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to tolerate to be able to change and ignite the change that you want in your life? And so, being said, even like myself, like my ultimate goal is to sacrifice a lot now, so I can achieve early retirement, so I can achieve early things, right? So I'm not 60 and then trying to explore life, right? Like I'm trying to do it all now. And I realize that the sacrifice I need to make is going to be much greater than the person that's maybe just trying to get healthy, or maybe there's a person that's just trying to do one particular thing, right? So is a balancing act too, because I got to stay healthy on top of everything, right? So I can't burn myself out, which I have to keep myself in check sometimes because I do like to burn myself out. But ultimately understand that, for the greater cause, right? Like what are you ultimately aim for? And a lot of times, even myself in my younger years, like I didn't have the focus on this is where I wanted to go. These are my goals, right? I don't like to use the term as goals and anything like that. It is important to have essentially mile markers on what you want to achieve during that year, right? And make sure that you are aligned with those mile markers in that destination, right? Because I talked about how your destination can change if you do get new perspective, if you do experience something and follow your curiosity, which is something I try to hammer a lot about, is to follow your curiosity. Because for me, I talk about how motivation is so temporary that you have to find the pockets of motivation. To be able to find the pockets of motivation, you have to follow your curiosity. When you follow your curiosity, it opens up new pockets of motivation. So it continues to allow you to push further. And then again, sometimes it may redirect you to a different direction in your life, which is important. Because I think, when you find that flow state, when you find the motivation, you're going to have to go with essentially that curiosity, that intuition, or following your heart, right? Which I think is something I've really been hammering and really been taking to heart myself, and been following my intuition. And you can amplify your intuition by being more mindful and looking inward again, which is something as a lot of people it's important, right? And I didn't realize how important intuition was until I was much older, and understanding how much of a difference it can make in your life, and realizing that the intuition that you have in your life there's a reason is there, right? It's your internal compass, right? And if you can't follow your internal compass, right, your logical side of your brain is going to tell you, again, all the tens of millions of reasons why it's not going to work. And then you'll never execute. Then you'll never make sacrifices. Then you'll only continue to tolerate things that you don't enjoy in life, as opposed to, changing that and realizing that your intuition is trying to guide you, but it requires you to take action, to take efforts, to break out of that, to break out of the cycle, to break out of the 90%, to be able to make change that lasts, right? You're working against your body, you're working against your mind, ultimately. And so with that being said, if there's anybody that has any questions, I think Lily is the only one on right now, but if there's none on here, Also, something I was going to mention in the beginning of the video too, which I haven't done, is I'm starting to do more videos outside. I want to try to do more things like that. I'm trying to expand my comfort zone a little bit more, but not only that, but try to provide you guys better scenery as opposed to just looking at blinds or the backgrounds and stuff I've had here. But if you guys do enjoy that video, I highly suggest the newest video I have out. I'm starting to do more recording my hikes and stuff that I go out on and provide that nature bathing, right? Since that's the new term that is going on around there. Maybe it's been around for a while, but it's something I just heard about. So I figured I'd share that nature bathing because we like to repackage stuff sometimes. But if nobody's got any questions, that is pretty much what I got for this Ignite Thursday. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. I hope you guys enjoy the long weekend. For those people who celebrate Easter, I hope you guys enjoy your Easter. Hope you guys have a phenomenal weekend. I hope you guys get some good weather. I know here we've had some good weather, but it's starting to get cold again. So till next time, guys, I will see you guys later.